Welcome to Megapath Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and this is my first impression review of The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 1. Now, this is a clip that's taken from the live after show we do after every single episode. If you want to watch my first impression review live, you could catch it the first 15 to 20 minutes of the after show, or wait a day or two, and I will separate the clip and post it by itself, and that's what you're watching now. I'm also going to try to get up the reaction video I recorded, and most importantly, the in-depth analysis will be a couple days. Those take a while to put together. So stay tuned, that will be coming. Until then, here's the first impressions from episode 1. Let's dive right into this. So, we're going to go into the first impression review right now, and then after 15 minutes or so, we'll end it, and then we'll go into the fan feedback. That's the questions from you guys. Now, first off, I liked it. I see a ton of people saying it's boring, so bad, terrible, awful. I liked it. Listen, here's the thing. There's a couple parts I'm not sure of yet. I might end up hating it. One, yes, it is the flash forward / hallucination scene. I think they're playing it really well because at this time, I'm not confident it's a hallucination. I am not confident it's an actual flash forward. They do some, like for comic book fans, they do some tricky things. Instead of straight up calling it a fair, in the comic they called it a fair. In this, they called it a celebration or whatever they said. You guys know, they called it a different word, which leads me to believe, okay, the cane, the hair, the look, using a different word, they could get away with this being a hallucination. Think about it. If Judith dies, this would fit perfectly with Judith's death. And they highlighted, like Carl walked right by, right? In and out. But Judith ran up to him. That shows time has passed, which could be another hint that this is an actual flash forward to after the war. Which, if you think about how they're breaking it down, if they're doing the entire war kind of like this, where we're bouncing around with different timelines, it makes sense later on. The whole story will make sense. If they do this for one episode, I agree with you. I'd be like, what? But if they continue this for a majority of the episodes, by the end of it, you'll start piecing it together, because think about it as if Rick is alive when Old Man Rick, he's alive in that present time. The war and everything like that is just a blurry mess at some points. Other points, it is real crystal clear, and he remembers, big portions of events and stuff like that. Not saying that that's how we're seeing it, but that's kind of the theme, or at least it feels like that's the theme they're going with right now as far as how it is separating stuff. I see a lot of people saying comments. I'm gonna say this straight up. That just want to clarify. I keep saying comments, but I mean commercials. Anyway, yeah, I think I say comments a few times. I'm talking about seeing a lot of comments about commercials, but I actually mean commercials when I'm talking, because a lot of fans said there's a lot of commercials. Well, there's not. There's the same amount of commercials, but it's the placement of the commercials that really makes it seem like they overload us with commercials. Anyway, back to the live. I agree with you. It feels like a shit ton of comments, but there's no more comments. We are making that up. And it's the comments when they're placed in the show. It's placed at moments where they suck us in and we don't want to cut for a break. A normal episode is 44 minutes on average, so that's 16 minutes of, did I do that right? Yes, I did. That's 16 minutes of commercials. This episode had, someone said 19 minutes. There was a few extra minutes of show. I think there was 5 extra minutes of show. So the commercials balance out. It's just the way it is. It's on TV. It's not on Netflix. So I will say that's not true. We didn't get more commercials. All right, moving on back to the episode. I enjoyed it overall. And as far as the timeline, that's how I'm viewing it. That's how I'm seeing it. But there's some areas I don't know about yet. That's why I'm holding off. If we come back in episode 2 and they don't play with time at all, and they don't kind of circle back around and touch on the structure in episode 1, I will kind of be like, oh, what was the point, I get the point of skipping, putting metal on the cars, getting bullets, scavenging this, luring the herd. I don't want to see that. I don't care. I spit too. That's how much I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that. I don't care about that. We know it's coming. They talked about it in season 7. So for me, skipping that, bouncing around, it was fine. And I'll say this right now. Forbes, that guy had to have been stoned to be so confused with this timeline. I get it. There's moments where you're like, when does this happen? But all you got to do is start piecing the clues together. Rick with his list. You find the moment where none of it's crossed off, and then later on, this is crossed off, 3 things are crossed off. You can start piecing the timeline together. Gabriel, he was at the end speech, but he was captured when they attacked the sanctuary. Hence, that end speech actually came before the thing. I'm sure plenty of you guys picked up on that. And I'm not going to get every timeline right off the bat. I'm going to have to rewatch it and go, okay, I see this playing out this way and this happening here. I get it, Anyway, let me see. I wrote a couple things on my notepad. I'm definitely going to try to write more on my notes because I only put a couple scribbles. But the opener is iffy. I wrote that right from the gate because it opens up with Rick kind of looking like a mess as if he was captured. Come on, we already saw it in the trailer. Rick's going to get captured sometime throughout the season or in the next coming episodes. It could be him hallucinating because we see him eyes red, all beat up, worn out, just haven't slept, starving, thirsty, you name it. That's how he looks. And then they show the flash forwards, they show the flashbacks and kind of what led up to meeting at the hilltop and stuff like that, and then going over to the sanctuary. So the opener was a little bit iffy, and I like how it's either or, flashback or hallucination. I think that is probably my favorite element right off the top of my head, or the one that sticks with me the most. Next up, Carl and Rick, that parallel. I see a lot of people saying, and we covered this, so I'm going to breeze over this. Go back and watch my video saying 1 to 100 explained or breakdown. It's the scene where Carl walks down and he gets on the ground and he sees the guy talking, he sees his feet. They parallel that with Rick's movements from season 1. I believe that's the very opening scene in the entire season, and that's what I thought they were going to open this season with. I really did, because it only makes sense. And I kind of wish they did. Like, it wouldn't hurt if you switched those around. It really wouldn't hurt the flow of things at all. Anyway, so I like that parallel. And it was funny, the guy, did you hear him? He said someone threw a microwave at him. But here's the thing. The Carl and Rick scene, I can suspend disbelief because they're giving us that homage to they're paying respects. They're paying homage to the very first episode of the series. This is the 100th episode. They did something that paid respects to the first episode. And yes, it's unbelievable that Carl would find a place that's identical to the one his father walked through. And he does the identical movements, the ribs on the ground, the hat off, and then he turns around, pulls his gun on somebody. But I can suspend disbelief for that, just for that moment paying homage. I like that back and forth with Carl and Rick, even that little bit. You don't have this dickish son, like this attitude. He's not dealing with this, but he comes off with a great, what's the word? His dad is like, we're not taking any chances, and Carl's still clinging to that humanity, and it reminded me of Glenn. Glenn's gone. Glenn was the one arguing we need to release the guy out of the container, and back in season 5. That's who we're still that person. That's who we still are. And then Carl was like, listen, Hope's not enough, Dad. The dude's starving to death. Hope isn't going to feed him. Hope isn't going to give him water. Hope just isn't enough. So I like that back and forth with Rick and Carl, and I hope we see more of that. Not, conflict and the little kid bitching and being a little dick. Not that. But just Carl maturing and showing his age and having his opinion, and an opinion that we can get behind, All right, so next up, taking out the lookouts. I love that aspect. And I kind of pictured it like this. Negan is putting his crew together, right? The good guys, they want to travel and they want to hit Negan without anyone telling them, without his lookout crew. And that's where they screwed up the last time in season 6 with the roadblocks. Again, peep that. They want to travel, and they didn't highlight this as big as I thought they would. I really thought this would be a great opportunity to show Rick's growth. Rick, he underestimated Negan before when they tried to take Maggie to the hilltop. Roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. But now they want to travel to attack the sanctuary, and they're taking out the lookouts along the way. Absolutely love that shit. Even though it wasn't, high quality action and going intense, I really, really dig that. And then Rick kills that one guy who's talking shit, and he chops the cord. While I was watching that, I'm thinking, Rick, just push him a little bit. Push him a little tiny bit into the zombie and let him get eaten up. We have Stand With Maggie. This is a scene from the comic book that I think they actually improved going into the TV show. In the comic book, when Negan brought Gregory out, and Gregory says, you know what, if you don't stand down and stand with Negan, you're not going to have a home to go back to. I don't know why I didn't think of this in the comic book, but in my head I thought, wait a minute, why don't they just go to Alexandria? Rick could have been like, don't worry guys, you can come to us. You can come to Alexandria, you can go to the kingdom, you can go wherever you want. You know, you got open gate. You fight with us, you stay with us. But on the TV show, they circumvented that whole little bit of a plot hole or loophole. In a comic, there was like 5 people left, and Negan was like, in this part, I'm like, oh, they didn't do it. Negan was like, okay, I can tell when I screwed up and when I made a mistake, and that didn't work. It was a really funny scene in the comic, but in the show, no one left. And then Jesus was like, we stand with Maggie. Love that moment. Love that moment. And I like how Gavin, you peep it, Gavin was probably one of the very few saviors who showed a little bit of heart. And Gavin was like, can we just get a timeout here, guys? You know, both of you put your egos in check and maybe we could talk through this. Negan snaps back like, no. There's going to be, or there's most likely will be something interesting happening with Gavin. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Gavin either survives and becomes one of the good guys and redeems himself, or at least a little bit, or survives through the war, becomes a good guy, has a redemption story, but dies in like a sad kind of way, you know? I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens with Gavin. Something's going to happen with Gavin. I'm really interested in seeing that play out. Rick going, Negan, are you really going to make me count? Back in episode 1 of season 7, Negan was going to tell Rick he's got to chop off Carl's hand. And he's like, oh, come on, Rick, you really going to make me count? Love that. And then he starts counting, and I zoned out. I was waiting for him to get to like 3, 2, 1. Maybe something else would happen, and Negan would be like, okay, Rick, hold on. We'll take this a different direction. He's like 7, 8, and he just starts bucking at Negan. Love that shit, because Rick ain't playing around. He's being a beast. And then Rick picks up the Polaroid and snaps the Polaroid after he has Negan pinned down. Now, in real life, I had a Polaroid. I love Polaroid cameras. I don't think it would take a clear picture at all at that distance. You would get this little bitty in rubble. So I'm going to scream at them if they show a picture later on, like if they wound Negan or capture Negan or anything, if they get close to Negan and they show him the picture of the Polaroid, which, mark my words right now, that Polaroid will be shown to Negan later on. When he's defeated, Rick is going to show him that Polaroid. And I will be pissed if it's an up-close image of Negan ducking for cover. You're not going to be able to see him. The clarity on that at that distance is not going to make it. Anyway, we have Rick hurt. Oh, I think I put Negan hurt. Negan was limping a little bit. Maybe he caught a ricochet. That's most likely what it's going to be. But I did want to put this in here just in case it was going to be something worse than a simple ricochet. But I think that is all it is. Negan and Father Gabriel did look like they were trapped in a building that was actually self-contained and outside of the rest of the factory. I'd be surprised, maybe because, factories, certain kind of styles, I don't know. Up north where I live, basements and stuff like that, it's very commonplace. But down south, you don't see any basements. People tell me down here they don't make basements, which is shocking to me. Like in the houses and the apartments, you just don't have basements. That's so weird. Anyhow, if there's a basement area, then okay. I feel foolish. They could probably just go down and connect with the rest of the factory. However, if there's no basement, because they are supposed to take place in Virginia-ish, so if there's no basement, maybe Negan and Father Gabriel are going to be trapped in there for a little bit. I think Greg Nicotero said it's going to be like a bit of a confessional, which is interesting, which means we're going to see them having a moment, chit-chatting for a little bit. I really like that idea. And comic book fans, think about Negan trapped with some other recent character, and think about if they're going to do something where it parallels the scene, Negan with Father Gabriel, and then in the comic later on, where they're already touching base with it, the new beginning, you have Negan trapped with somebody else. Just think about that for a moment. Are they going to remix it? Do they really know a different direction they're going to take the show, and they're already starting to remix stuff? And another big thing to be aware of, there's a lot of filming in episode 1, that's also going to spill over into other episodes. They made a point to talk about this during an interview with TV Guide magazine. Does that even make sense? There's no magazine. It's just TV Guide. Anyhow, TV Guide said they're filming scenes in episode 1 that will be in episode 2 and possibly in episode 3, or definitely, I forget. Which means we might be seeing this chopped up timeline, a lot going on, scattered like crazy for 3 episodes in a row. We might see Negan still trapped in episode 3 or episode 4, depending on where they bounce around. Now, one other reason why I do enjoy an episode like this, I love some of the bits of humor, even in the action, and I think the humor isn't over the top. The humor, in my opinion, was just perfection. The Polaroid, Rick saying he's going to count and then bucking off before he even gets to counting anywhere close to halfway done with counting. Stuff like that. I think the comedy really hits its mark. I'm fine with it bouncing around as long as when they complete it, in its completion, it makes sense and it's not so jumbled. When you watch one episode, it's a jumbled mess. When you watch 2 episodes, it starts connecting some of them and it starts making more sense. 3, 4 episodes, they circle back around somewhere along the line. Maybe they do this throughout the first half. Maybe it circles back around and then the whole thing starts making more sense. But one of the biggest reasons why I'm more open to structure like this is because if they make it work overall, I could go back and rewatch it, because now I'm interested in going back and rewatching it because I'm not quite sure 100% if I caught everything and when it was taking place, and it feels fresh since it's all scattered. You get what I mean? Anyhow, I see a few super chats. We're going to get to the super chats first, but I'm almost done with my overall thoughts and opinions. This is where I'm stuck with this episode. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. There's a lot I did enjoy. There's a lot riding on the connection between the other episodes, which is going to be the ultimate determination of how much I enjoy this. If skipping the timelines fails for whatever reason for the next coming episodes, my love for this episode will drop dramatically, and this is why it gets tricky trying to judge it now. Right now I enjoyed it and I'm moving ahead positive. However, if down the line it just stumbles, my review for this will change. My review stands, but my points at the end of the day for this episode, how much I enjoy it overall, it's gonna change, and that all depends on if they connect this, figure out a name for it, the blended timeline, the butchered timeline. Let's call it that. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just a fun way to put it. So if they don't connect the butchered timeline in an interesting way overall, then my love for this episode will definitely drop. Okay, I'm hoping I caught everything. That is all of my thoughts and opinions for my first impression review. We're going to dive into the fan feedback from you guys right now. If you have Thank you very much for watching, and feel free to stop by every single Sunday night. We will always do an after show for The Walking Dead right here at Make a Path Presents, usually 30 minutes to an hour depending on what's going on. We're going to try to go live. I'm going to try to shorten that, so maybe it's only like a 10-15 minute window, and then we're going to go live after the first airing of every episode. I'm going to get going. Thank you very much for stopping by. Put your thoughts and opinions down in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.